What's going on, YouTube, fam? This your boy Tony 2 times, and we back with another episode of Hood Tales, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. Definitely watch this video to the end to hear the full story and all the details in the case. For the day one, fam, y'all already know it's all love. Thanks for tuning back into another episode. If you're new to the channel and you feeling the content, feel free to subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a new video. Oh yeah, feel free to share the channel with your peoples. Everybody is welcome. Let's get right into the story. Dating can be a good thing or a bad thing. The pros of looking for someone to start a life with is the excitement, the butterflies you get when you really are feeling that person and connecting with them on all levels. Some people get lucky. They meet a few people, go out a few times, but in a short period, they realize the one that best suits them and their needs cuts everyone else off, and eventually, if the relationship works out, they take that big step, marriage. But others deal with the cons. Dating for years, multiple people, every time it seems like the right person comes around, something happens and it just doesn't work out. For a lot of men and women, it gets exhausting as the dating pool is flooded with people with unrealistic standards, complexes, or simply just crazy and throw it off. I can't speak for women, but for men, dating can be a sport. It challenges us to put our best game forth. Try to bag the baddest female in the city, the one who is beautiful, educated, has a lot going for herself. If you pull that off and take her down, it's almost like winning a trophy. Sometimes we have good intentions, like shorty might be the one. Other times, it might just be to have some fun. But depending on the type of woman that bad independent chick is, you have to be careful. Most females that have their stuff together and know exactly what they want, if you lay down with her and decide later on she is not it because everything that glitters isn't gold, you might find yourself on the receiving end of a woman's scorn, and the outcome can be fatal. And on this episode of Hood Tales, we'll be taking it to the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., to discuss the case of a jealous woman who snapped after a man rejected her and refused to make her his girlfriend. Back in 2020, 37-year-old Najinsky Dix was navigating life and making big moves while doing so. Living in South Bend, Indiana, the woman had received multiple degrees, and at that stage of her life was topping off her education, going to college in Chicago, attending the University of Illinois, studying to get her PhD in criminology. In Indiana, Najinsky had a great job at Notre Dame, the world-famous college, where she made good money, and for any regular person, that would be a forever career. But the young woman was ambitious and wanted more. Beautiful and smart, you would think Najinsky would have her pick of the litter when it came to getting the attention of any man. But she was single and searching. Then in late February of 2020, her luck would change when she was out at a bar in South Bend. While having a drink, a man caught her eye. He was at the time 44-year-old Terry Hickman. See, like Najinsky, Terry had accomplished a lot in life. In his younger years, he was big into sports, football in particular, which landed him a full scholarship to college. He decided to attend Morris Brown of Atlanta before then transferring to Olivet College in Michigan. A Chicago native, Terry grew up fast, and in college found himself set back a little bit by having a child. But it didn't stop the man. Ambitious, he found many ways to support his family. And by 2008, Terry had hit the jackpot, becoming the CEO of $1 million crude oil family trucking company called PCS. Being the boss man of the company allowed Terry to travel at will and move to different states, such as Tennessee, North Dakota, amongst many other places. Terry's life fascinated Najinsky. As the two sipped and talked, she was happy to meet a man on her level. Plus, it had been hard dating in 2020, mid-pandemic. But Terry had recently got divorced, had 3 kids, and wasn't looking for anything serious. But that didn't stop the two from casual dating. When he was in town, he would spend time with Najinsky, to the point she considered the man her boyfriend and was looking to take things to the next level. But after a few months, 3 to be exact, Terry would grow bored with the situationship and decided to fall back from Najinsky. But the young lady wasn't giving up without a fight. She contacted Terry's family and friends looking for advice on how to keep him and make him happy, offering them money, paid trips, buying his daughter jewelry, and calling and texting Terry multiple times daily, to the point he had to block her and tell her she should respect boundaries and leave him and his family alone. Terry had just reconnected with his daughter, who was attending college in Washington, D.C. Being that he could work from anywhere, he moved to the D.C. area to be close to her. As months went by, Nijinsky kept attempting to contact Terry and his family, to the point they felt there was stalking and she was crazy. By November 2020, Nijinsky became upset after realizing Terry had been texting one of her close friends, who she had previously introduced him to. He was texting the woman about business ideas, but Nijinsky took it as he was using her to meet other women that he really wanted to be with. Feeling played, she told her friend he better stop playing with me or I will literally kill him. She had recently went to Florida and bought a gun and told everyone Terry was the reason she bought it. She wanted to confront the man, but she didn't know where he lived until she did some research and found he had an address in D.C. She decided she would grab her gun, get on a plane from Indiana, and fly to D.C. unannounced. On November 14th, Nijinsky got off the plane, rented a car, and drove to Terry's apartment, located in the 1000 block of 4th Street Southwest. As she banged on the door, Terry, confused and a little irritated, let her in so he wouldn't disturb his neighbors. While in the apartment, she confronted Terry about their relationship, in which he told her it wasn't one. Their fling was over, before soon multiple shots went off. Nijinsky called DC police, crying, stating she just shot her boyfriend. When they responded to the location, she wouldn't open the apartment door, so they used the master key to enter. Once they walked in, police found Nijinsky holding a gun and Terry suffering from 4 gunshot wounds, including one to the back of his head. He was unfortunately pronounced gone on the scene. A woman was on Nijinsky's phone, on speaker. She told police she was Nijinsky's mother. She stated her daughter told her Terry had pushed her, but when police attempted to talk to Nijinsky, she seemed dazed and claimed to have memory loss from blacking out. Neighbors reported they heard yelling coming from the apartment, shots going off, then a woman crying, saying, "No, stay with me, don't die." As Nijinsky got medical attention, paramedics found no evidence that she was hit or pushed, as she claimed she hit her head. She was taken to the police station for questioning. By this time, detectives had already talked to Terry's family, who gave them the rundown on how he rejected her, but she kept stalking him and his peoples. In interrogation, Nijinsky cried as police asked what happened. After trying to play victim, they tried a different angle, showing her the pictures of Terry's body and the damage she caused. She screamed and yelled, "Get it away from me. I'm sorry, but you don't do nobody who you say you love like that. That's not love," referring to her and Terry's relationship. She was taken into custody, charged with an illegal gun, ammunition, and first-degree murder charges. As the case made its way to trial, Terry's whole family was dead and had a lot to say about Nijinsky. They pointed to the fact a grown woman couldn't take no for an answer, so she became obsessed, started stalking them, and when all that didn't work, she decided to take Terry's life in the end. And if I can't have you, nobody can type of fashion. With the family already grieving and not wanting to go through with the trial, the court offered Nijinsky a plea deal to plead a second-degree hit while armed and serve 18 years. Even though some of Terry's family members disagreed and were mad and felt she deserved life, others wanted it to be over. And in 2023, Nijinsky Dix looked back at the family crying, saying she was sorry before being sentenced to 18 years in prison. Rest in peace to Terry. I send my prayers and condolences to his family. This case goes to show you, just because a person seems whole on the outside doesn't mean they are good on the inside. Nijinsky seemed spoiled, always getting her way and couldn't accept the fact Terry didn't want her. In her defense, fellas, we gotta hear women out when they say what they are looking for. If they say marriage, love, or if we lay down, you are my man, take that for what it is. It's never right to take a life over a broken heart, but some people do. She took that man away from his 3 kids over a 3-month fling. She told the police, "You don't play or hurt people you love," but then shoots the man she claimed she was in love with. She didn't understand the differences. It's a thin line between love and hate, and she hated Terry for not wanting her. Now she has to sit and reflect with that for the next 18 years. Y'all let me know what y'all thoughts on the situation. And remember, we got to succeed, not to fail, so we won't be just another hood tale. Yeah, man, this was a crazy story. Rest in peace to Terry. But I ain't gonna talk too much more about this one. Y'all let me know what y'all think about the situation. I appreciate you if you made it to the end. This is another episode of Hood Tales. This your boy Tony 2 times. Love, fam.
It's your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 times, and I'm back with another episode of Hood Tales. In this video, I'll be taking it to Detroit, Michigan to discuss the brutal slaying of 41-year-old Tiffany Hunter. But before we get into this video, I'd like to say thank you to all of our supporters. We hope you all stick around. If you like to support the channel monetarily, you can find the information on the screen. And to support us for absolutely no cost, please hit that like button. Also, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and join the Tony 2 times family. Tap that notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. Also, if you'd like to see more episodes of Hood Tales, please click the link to the playlist in the description box after this video to get caught up. And be sure to share this video with everyone you know. Stay tuned until the end to hear all the details. All right, let's get into it. Mother and daughter relationships can be fulfilling and, on the other hand, complex. For Tiffany Hunter, she faced some issues with her oldest daughter, Amber, once she became of age and started her own life. Tiffany had Amber when she was just 15 years old. Tiffany had aspirations of becoming an ear, nose, and throat specialist, but had to put that on the back burner and focus on supporting herself and Amber. Amber's father didn't necessarily stick around, so Tiffany got a job in retail and worked her way up to management. Tiffany went on to have another child, but that relationship also didn't work out. Tiffany held her own as a single mother and took care of her kids. Just before Tiffany turned 30, she decided it was time for her to go to college to earn her degree. Tiffany moved her family from their hometown in Mobile, Alabama, to Detroit, where she enrolled in school. Once Tiffany got settled into her new life, she found love again with a man named Walter. She welcomed her third child with Walter, a daughter. Tiffany's and Walter's relationship soon fizzled, but Walter remained present in Tiffany and his child's life. Tiffany and her children lived in a home that Walter owned. He wanted to make sure that they were taken care of. Tiffany found her way back on the dating scene and would end up with her fourth child, another daughter, but the relationship with the father became that of co-parents. Tiffany graduated from college with her bachelor's degree and decided to go back to school to pursue her master's. She also got back into the dating scene and found herself a new man who we'll call Nolan. The relationship was fresh and new. Tiffany was really attracted to him and enjoyed the time they spent together. Tiffany's life was all coming together. Her hard work was finally paying off. She was in her prime and was well respected in the community and at work. As Tiffany was just starting a new chapter in her life, she was also facing some challenges. Her relationship with Nolan had hit a snag, and there were rumors that things were becoming somewhat volatile, so they saw less of each other. Tiffany and her oldest daughter, Amber, were also having problems. Amber and her mother always seemed to butt heads. With only a 15-year age gap, Amber sometimes saw her mother as her peer and not her parent. Amber followed her mother's footsteps and had children at an early age. Amber had also gotten married to her kid's father, but the relationship had its ups and downs. She looked to her mother for help, but at the same time, refused to take any of her mother's advice on the matter, which caused tension between them. Tiffany would put her foot down with Amber and would tell her to get a job and pull her own weight in her relationship. Tiffany was adamant about Amber leaving the nest and starting her own life. Amber tried to make her first relationship work, but they eventually went their separate ways. After the relationship was over, Amber, with 2 children, found herself in a new relationship with a man named Javante Wakefield. Amber had found her person in Javante, someone who could understand her and meet her emotional needs. Amber and Javante's love for each other was deep. They would do anything for each other. You wouldn't see one without the other. Amber and Javante got married in 2014 and had 2 more children together. Javante promised Amber he would take care of her and their family. However, the pressure to provide a good life and a stable living situation for a family of 6 proved to be a challenge for both Amber and Javante. Javante wasn't having any luck finding gainful employment in his hometown of Mobile, Alabama, so he decided to make the move to Detroit to find more opportunities. The move to Detroit meant Amber, Javante, and the 4 children would end up living with Tiffany. By that time, Tiffany was ready to start living her own life, and the arrangement became too much for her to put up with. Tiffany's other children were either grown or old enough to take care of themselves. In 2017, Tiffany eventually told Amber and Javante they had to move out of her home and go out to make a life for themselves. Amber was upset and felt as though her mother was not there for her during her time of need. Amber and Javante, both 26, didn't have financial stability and felt that they had no help from family, which caused them to isolate themselves. The place they moved into was not up to par for all of them to live comfortably, to the point they were practically without a real place to call home. Their dire living situation prompted Amber's first husband to want to take custody of his 2 children with Amber. That sent Amber over the edge, especially when her mother agreed that the 2 oldest children should go with their father. Tiffany thought it was best, but Amber didn't like that. Despite their living situation, Amber felt like she was the happiest she had ever been. Tiffany vouching for her older grandchildren to be with their father made Amber feel like her mother was trying to tear everything she had apart. She didn't want her mother to be a part of the investigation or go to the court on behalf of her ex and the children's father. Amber and Tiffany's relationship had hit its breaking point. Tiffany stood firm on her convictions when it came to Amber, and despite their issues, Tiffany went on to live her life. After Tiffany decided to distance herself from the new guy, Nolan, she started spending time with her 3rd child's father, Walter. On Saturday, September 9th, 2017, Tiffany and Walter had dinner together, and she stayed the night at his place. She left to go home on Sunday, the 10th. Tiffany's younger children were not at home with her. That night, Walter had not heard from Tiffany, so at 4 o'clock the next morning, he woke up and decided to head to Tiffany's house, but his car broke down. A couple hours later, he was able to use his mother's car and arrived at Tiffany's house around 6:30 a.m. Walter had a key to Tiffany's place since he owned the house. As he entered, he discovered something horrifying. Tiffany was laying on the floor in a pool of blood with a pillow placed under her head. Walter immediately called 911. When officers arrived at the scene, they found Tiffany. She was clearly no longer alive. Tiffany had blunt force trauma to her head and had been cut up to 70 times. Detectives knew that this was a homicide and it was personal and a crime of passion. The first suspect they looked into was Walter. However, he denied any involvement and said he and Tiffany were on good terms. Neighbors told detectives they heard screams coming from Tiffany's home on the 10th. The neighbor even texted her to ask if she was okay. Neighbors also believed the guy Nolan was stalking Tiffany. However, when detectives spoke with Nolan, he was forthcoming with information and cooperated with the investigation. He told police he had nothing to do with Tiffany's slaying. He pointed the finger back at Walter and pointed out that Tiffany once had a restraining order against him. Nolan told detectives Walter had a habit of popping up at Tiffany's place unannounced, and it would cause friction between them, and it would even get violent. When detectives confronted Walter with that information, he didn't deny that he would show up to Tiffany's place. He said he felt like he had the right to do so since he was the owner of the home. Walter told police he found it disrespectful when Tiffany would have other men in the home and they would argue about it because they still saw each other intimately. Walter still insisted he had nothing to do with Tiffany's slaying and said he and Tiffany started back hanging out because she wanted to end things with Nolan. Both men would eventually provide police with DNA, and neither of them came back as a match to DNA found at the scene. Tiffany's case would go cold. That was until February 17th, 2018, when detectives received a call from a man who said he was the father of Tiffany's fourth child. He said his daughter had been struggling with the loss of her mother and had information to share with them. When Tiffany's youngest daughter, who I'll call Maya, and her father came down to the station, she dropped a bombshell and said that her older sister Amber had come to her and asked her if she could help her get rid of their mother, Tiffany. Maya explained the dynamics of Amber and their mother's relationship to detectives. She said Amber was upset at their mother because she was in favor of Amber's two children going to live with their father. Amber didn't want Tiffany getting involved and going to court. Maya also said Amber mentioned that their mother had a hefty insurance policy and that as the oldest, she was the beneficiary. Amber believed getting rid of Tiffany would solve her and Javante's problems, both with the courts and their financial freedom. Amber allegedly asked her younger sister if she knew any shooters that could take her mother out. Maya refused to help her sister, but that didn't stop Amber and Javante from moving forward with the plot. Maya told detectives that Amber told her that she and Javante were going to commit the crime on September 9th, 2017. Maya told police, according to Amber, that Javante entered their mother's home through the window. Javante then took a selfie of himself next to a picture that Amber knew was inside the home to show that he had made it in and was waiting for Tiffany to get home. The photo Javante took was later found in devices that the couple used to communicate through Facebook Messenger. Detectives combed through Amber and Javante's phone records and found more than enough evidence. On March 5th, 2018, police in Detroit put out a warrant for both Amber and Javante's arrest. Detroit police joined forces with the FBI to locate Amber and Javante. Investigators got word that Amber did receive the payout from the insurance policy and looked into her financial records. The couple had been living the high life. Soon, detectives were able to get a location on Amber and Javante. They traced the couple miles away from Detroit in Youngstown, Ohio. Investigators learned that the couple used the money to start up a bakery in Youngstown. Detroit police reached out to law enforcement in Youngstown to aid in the apprehension of Amber and Javante. Law enforcement raided their home and took them both into custody without incident on March 9th, 2018. Amber and Javante were charged with slaying Tiffany Hunter. During the raid, law enforcement collected electronic devices, among other items, into evidence. They also found a letter written to Tiffany Hunter apologizing for what was done. When police brought Javante in for questioning, he was not very forthcoming with information. He denied knowing anything about Tiffany's slaying, even after detectives told him about the picture they found that he took inside Tiffany's home. As detectives continued to press him, he asked for his lawyer, and the interrogation was over. When it came time for detectives to speak with Amber, she had a very nonchalant demeanor, even smiling as detectives asked her basic questions. Detectives began to ask her about her mother's slaying, and that's when Tiffany also asked for her lawyer. After learning their charges, the reality of the situation began to set in for Amber. She was now willing to cooperate and was offered a plea deal for 25 to 50 years for second-degree murder instead of first-degree. In exchange for her plea, Amber agreed to tell her version of the truth. Amber turned on Javante and said he was the mastermind behind her mother's slaying. Her testimony was that it was Javante's plan to get her mother's life insurance money because of their dire financial state. She denied it was any of her idea and put it all on Javante. Amber said she went along with Javante's plan because of the love she had for him. She agreed to the idea that the only way they could stay together is if her mother was no longer in the picture. Amber gave a description of how Javante committed the heinous act against her mother. According to Amber, once Tiffany got home, Javante, who had been waiting for her, walks up behind Tiffany and hits her in the head with a hammer. In a rage, he then cuts her up to 70 times, and in the process, he cuts himself, leaving his DNA at the scene. She said after he left the scene, he got rid of the hammer, got on a bus, put the clothes he was wearing in a bag, and destroyed the evidence. After giving her version of that night, Amber accepted her plea deal and was sentenced to 25 to 50 years on January 17th, 2019. With the stakes high and Amber's words stacked against him, Javante would also end up taking a plea deal for second-degree murder in April 2022. May Tiffany Hunter continue to rest in peace. My belated condolences to her family. This is such a tragic story of greed, entitlement, and misplaced anger. I found a profile of Amber's on a website called meetaninmate.com, and the way she speaks of herself and her case seem very self-centered. She listed her accomplishments as a graduate from culinary school. She described herself as trustworthy, loyal, and honest. She speaks of reopening a bakery as if the first one she opened was not on blood money from a plot with her then husband to end her mother's life. It's a little cringe and disturbing, but it goes to show Amber's mindset. As I said in the beginning, mother and daughter relationships can be complex, but there are other ways to handle disagreements and disappointments. Participating in a plot to take her mother's life was sinister. She didn't care about the consequences or how it would affect her younger siblings. While Amber gave her version of the truth of how her mother was slain and put it all on Javante, I believe she had more of the role as the mastermind. I don't believe she was manipulated into going along with the plan. I believe it was more the other way around, and she convinced Javante this was their only way out of their problems, and he was a willing participant. As the man, I feel Javante may have bit off more than he could chew when he entered into a relationship with Amber. The responsibility was a lot to bear for a man that had no means of even taking care of himself. He inherited 3 people to take care of, then added 2 more when they had children. He didn't want to lose Amber or not meet her expectations. I believe they both had something to gain from the slaying and the insurance payout. They could now show everyone who may have doubted them that, hey, look, we straight now. We're on top, even if that meant that Tiffany had to go. Amber and Javante took all their frustrations and anger out on Tiffany and made her their target and meal ticket. It's just so sad. Fam, but that's just my opinion on this tragic story. Let me know your thoughts. Who do you think was really the mastermind, Amber or Javante? What is your analysis on this case? Let me know in the comments below. All right, fam, that's it for this episode of Hood Tales. Thank you all so much for watching. If you made it this far, put a broken heart or a heart on fire emoji in the comments. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 times, and I'm out.
What's going on, YouTube, fam? It's your boy Tony 2 times, and we back with another episode of Hood Tales, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. Definitely watch this video to the end to hear the full story and all the details in the case. For the day one, fam, y'all already know it's all love. Thanks for tuning back into another episode. If you're new to the channel and you feeling the content, feel free to subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a new video. Oh yeah, feel free to share the channel with your peoples. Everybody is welcome. Let's get right into the story. People have a lot of things they do for entertainment. Whether you are a homebody that comes home from a long day of work and watches TV with your significant other, or the type to hit the streets with a few close friends to slide by a club. Those are a few ways people choose to have a good time. But of course, there's many more. What a lot of us men, for a long time, it's always been something about strip clubs that grabs our attention. An environment full of beautiful women, drinks, food is one of those places that even if it's not your type of vibe, most men have heard so much about the clubs and the dances, you gotta go at least once. For a lot of us, we peep the hustle. Watered down drinks, gotta keep your cup full at all times, tip the dancers, lap dances almost $50. By the time you leave the club, you are down a cool $300-400. For most, that's enough to say, nah, I'm Gucci on that. But some individuals get caught up on the fantasy and the allure of the girls in the club, rather hypnotized by a body or face or addicted to the atmosphere. We all know strip clubs have been known to break up happy homes for years, for many of men that can't control themselves. Sex sells, and the goal is to sell you a dream. So in your mind, you can feel like maybe you could have an opportunity to be with this dancer. For a few of the girls, you can throw a ticket out there. If the price is right, your dreams become reality. But some keep it simply just a hustle. It's a no judgment zone. But when you mix a decent body, looks, greed, and a cold heart together, that dream girl can turn into a nightmare real fast. And on this episode of Hood Tales, we'll be taking it to Houston, Texas to discuss the case of an exotic dancer who used the stage to lure customers to her boyfriend. All the way back in 2012, 20-year-old Larissa Ross was navigating the streets of Houston and trying to make a living. With her being a people's person and her looks, she decided to hit the infamous Houston club scene and become an exotic dancer at a club called Ice Cream Castles. Larissa, due to her hair and face, was given the stage name Pocahontas, in which night after night, men would pay to see her dance. The young lady had a boyfriend though, a 22-year-old man named Kevin Johnson. Kevin didn't mind that his girl was a dancer, as long as she made money and broke bread with him. The club was in a part of the city that some would refer to as the trenches. A lot of robberies, shootings, but usually that comes with the club nightlife. And of course, that never stopped the men from coming by. Larissa, while talking to the other dancers, heard it was easy to finesse the men and had them let their guards down, either to get them to spend a lot of money or get them to meet outside the club and get somebody to rob them. Thinking how fast the money could be without having to show her body, she decided to try her hand. She met a man who we would call Troy at the club and gave him her phone number and told the man to hit her after work. One day Troy did just that. Not believing his luck, thinking he could smash the dancer just off the strength, he texted the young lady. She told him to come to her apartment complex in North Houston, in the 2300 block of West Tidwell Road. Excited about the encounter, Troy headed to the location. When he pulled up, he hit Pocahontas' phone, letting her know he was outside. She advised the man to get out the car and come upstairs. As soon as Troy got out the car, a man walked up and upped the gun on him and told him to kick everything out before a shot went off. Troy was hit, but conscious. He called Houston PD and reported he was just robbed and shot. He was taken to a local hospital in stable condition. He was able to give a full description of the girl he was coming to meet. He also told police the club she worked at and her name, as police clearly knew it was a setup. Pocahontas was quickly picked up and taken into custody. She claimed not to know the shooter's name, but admitted she helped set up the robbery. She was held on $50,000 bail, in which she made, and then she was released on a box. But the show continued, still dancing and meeting men. She would soon meet a 34-year-old man named Boudreaux Briscoe, who family and friends called Boo for short. Boo was a father of 7 kids, a hard worker, and sometimes on his downtime, he visited the strip club. After meeting Pocahontas and getting her number, he couldn't wait to see her outside of the club. On February 17, 2012, Boo was outside on the late night tip. He had to pick his cousin up from the airport. Once he scooped him, he let him know like, yo, I'm about to go link up with this little dancer chick. Slide with me. His cousin said okay and agreed to the situation. Boo contacted Pocahontas, in which she told the man to come to the same apartment complex Troy was robbed at. Not knowing her MO, he agreed. As him and his cousin arrived, Pocahontas came outside to meet the men in the courtyard. She told Boo, hold up, she had to take a call. On the phone call, she stated, like, yes, it's 2 of them. Not peeping the move, Boo just sat there patiently until she hung up. She then told the man to meet her upstairs. She was going to get ready for him. He pulled up to one of the buildings to park. That's when his cousin was like, yo, it's 2 dudes hoodied up sitting in a Lincoln. But Boo was on a mission to get up with the young lady. He got out the car to walk to the building, while his cousin stayed behind. As he approached the complex, the 2 men had already got out the car and was creeping up by a dumpster. They walked up and told Boo to kick out everything before shots went off and they fled. His cousin heard the commotion and called the police. They responded to the location a little after 2 a.m. to find Boo suffering from gunshot wounds in critical condition. He was rushed to a local hospital. As his family told police he was going to meet a girl, Houston PD already had an idea who it was, as a similar robbery had just happened 1 month prior. A look through Boo's phone revealed pictures of Pocahontas. Police went to track down the young lady, who was still out on bail and on a box. As a few days went by, she was picked up and taken into custody. In the interview, she admitted she was trying to set Boo up to be robbed, but she didn't know they would shoot him. His cousin told police he saw one man shoot and another go in his cousin's pocket as he laid on the ground. The young lady pointed to the shooter in both cases, Troy and Boo, as her boyfriend, Kevin Johnson, but he was in the win. She was at first taken into custody, just charged with robbery. As Boudreaux's family spoke out on him being a kind man with 7 daughters and a big heart, his peoples cried as they felt he was taken for no reason. As days after being shot, the man unfortunately passed away from his injuries. Police deemed Pocahontas the dancer with a deadly touch, who now was charged with capital murder. On her first court appearance, she was given a no bail, but Kevin was still on the run. With all the evidence from Boo's phone and her confession, Pocahontas pled guilty to the charges and was sentenced to 50 years in prison. It took almost a year for police to track down Kevin, who was pulled over on a traffic stop and taken into custody, charged with the same thing as his girlfriend. I couldn't find any information on if he got found guilty or was ever sentenced at all. Rest in peace to Boudreaux. I send my prayers and condolences to his family. Sometimes as men, we let our desires get the best of us. We don't be thinking clearly. To see 2 dudes creeping in a car, you would think him and his cousin would just pull off. But at the end of the day, we all done made mistakes like that. The young lady seemed like she was easily influenced, and she was a setup queen. She used the club to set men up to get money outside the club. When really, if she just would have focused on what she had going on, she probably could have made more money dancing. But I'm going to leave this one open for discussion. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. And remember, we got to succeed, not to fail, so we won't be just another hood tale. Yeah, man, crazy story. Rest in peace, that man. But I ain't going to talk too much more about this one. Y'all leave it in the comments. I appreciate you if you made it to the end. This is another episode of Hood Tales. It's your boy Tony 2 times. Love, fam.
It's your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 times, and I'm back with another episode of Hood Tales. In this video, I'll be taking it to Taylor, Michigan, southwest of Detroit, to discuss the tragic story of an altercation between 2 co-workers that ended fatally. But before we get into this video, please don't forget to hit that like button. Also, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and join the Tony 2 times family. Tap that notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. Also, if you'd like to see more episodes of Hood Tales, please click the link to the playlist in the description box after this video to get caught up. And be sure to share this video with everyone you know. Stay tuned until the end to hear all the details. All right, let's get into it. On Monday, October 16th, 2017, at 7:05 a.m. in Taylor, Michigan, at a Burlington Coat Factory department store, employees arrived at work to get the store prepared for customers' arrival. Store employees trickled in and started clocking in to begin their respective shifts. Just as the workday was getting started, 49-year-old Sandra Lynette Waller and 49-year-old Lorraine Maylin Faison got into a brief altercation in the break room. Things escalated quickly as Sandra pulled her registered Glock 23 out and fired at Lorraine once, striking her in the chest. As Lorraine fought for her life, Sandra called 911 and reported what happened. She remained on the scene until police arrived. When officers arrived at the scene, they were met by Sandra at the door. She had the weapon in her waistband. The weapon was handed over to the police, and Sandra was arrested without incident. As officers and first responders made their way into the department store, they found Lorraine lying on the storage room floor. She was rushed to Beaumont Hospital in Taylor, where she sadly passed away from her injuries. Officers also found a bullet hole and a single shell casing in the storage room that matched the caliber of bullet for a Glock 23 and a pair of scissors near where Lorraine was found. Lorraine Faison of Allen Park was a mother to her only daughter, and she was also a grandmother. Lorraine had worked at the Burlington store on Eureka Road for nearly a year. One would ask, how did a seemingly normal opening shift at a department store turn into something so tragic? According to the police investigation, both Sandra and Lorraine had ongoing issues with each other at work. The issues had been reported to management. The two women did not get along with each other. Sandra and Lorraine had got into an altercation the day before the incident, and both were reportedly sent home as a result. The argument the day before stemmed from a disagreement on how merchandise should be marked down. Sandra's fiancé at the time went on to tell news outlets that if Sandra and Lorraine were sent home for the same problem, management should know it wasn't right for them to be working together. Sandra's fiancé says she was the one in danger. She was not the type of person to get in trouble and had no criminal history. However, Lorraine's family believes Sandra's actions were premeditated. Lorraine's daughter says the report of Burlington managers sending her mom and Sandra home because of a disagreement wasn't completely accurate. According to what Lorraine's daughter told reporters, the managers had to act like they sent both women home, but really sent Sandra home and told her mom to just go take a break and come back to work because Sandra was supposedly the aggressor. Sandra was ultimately charged with first-degree murder and a felony firearm charge. A preliminary hearing was held a few weeks after Sandra was arrested. 4 witnesses were called to the stand to determine whether there was enough evidence to continue the case. The witnesses included a store manager and 3 Taylor police officers. During the store manager's testimony, she spoke of the altercation that took place at the store a day before the fatal incident. According to the store manager's testimony, Sandra and Lorraine got into a dispute about the proper way to scan aisles. Lorraine told Sandra she was doing it wrong, and in turn, Sandra told Lorraine she couldn't tell her what to do. The two women started yelling and cursing at each other. The dispute was brought to the supervisor's attention, and she tried separating them to different departments. However, that didn't work, and the women started yelling at each other again. It ended when both women were sent home and their pay was docked. The assistant manager told the court Sandra said being moved to another department would make her look weak. The assistant manager went on to testify about what happened the following morning when both Lorraine and Sandra arrived at work. She said she was alerted that there was an altercation in the store just before the doors opened at 8:45 a.m. and took Sandra to her office to discuss it. She said she did not see a firearm on Sandra's hip at the time, but that associates are not allowed to bring a firearm into the workplace. The first responding officer also took the stand and testified about being greeted by Sandra, placing her under arrest, the recovery of the Glock 23, her cooperation with officers, and her license to carry. A second Taylor police officer took the stand and told the court about finding Lorraine unresponsive in a storage room and the other evidence that was discovered, including the bullet hole and shell casing that matched the caliber weapon that Sandra had in her possession. Lastly, a detective took the stand and told the court about surveillance video from the Burlington store on the day of the shooting and the day before showing the dispute. The surveillance from the morning of the incident shows Sandra in the break room as the day starts. Investigators say when Lorraine arrives, It appears she pushed the door open and shoved Sandra, who reacts and runs out of view of the camera. The shouting and name-calling between Lorraine and Sandra escalated. Investigators say moments later, surveillance shows the firearm being pulled out. That is when the shooting happened, but it wasn't filmed because the video camera in the area where it occurred was not working that day. The prosecution said the fact that Sandra came to work with a weapon and her use of fatal force with a mere possibility of minor harm is evidence to show her actions were premeditated. On the contrary, the defense argued that Sandra should be charged with second-degree or manslaughter instead of first-degree. The defense claimed that based on the evidence of a pair of scissors being found next to Lorraine's body may be evidence that Sandra somehow acted in self-defense. The defense said there was clearly heat of passion between the two parties, and despite the store's policy, Sandra had a right to be carrying a firearm. The defense also said that what was not shown is that Sandra's actions were premeditated. However, the judge disagreed and noted that Sandra woke up that morning and decided to go to work with a firearm a day after an argument with Lorraine. The judge told Sandra she was bringing a gun to a fist fight. The judge later ruled the case had enough evidence to go to trial, and Sandra remained charged with first-degree hit. Then, on February 2nd, 2018, Sandra Waller went on to plead guilty to second-degree hit and felony firearm in the slaying of Lorraine Faison in exchange for the first-degree charge being dropped. Sandra's sentencing hearing was later that month on February 20th, 2018. Before Sandra received her sentence, Lorraine's family spoke to the court. Lorraine's sister was the first to speak and told the court, although they were not on speaking terms, neither would now have the opportunity to apologize. She told the court that Lorraine was a wonderful woman and sister. She also said that Sandra robbed her of growing old with her sister. Lorraine's daughter also spoke and called Sandra a coward and said her mother's slaying was senseless. Sandra also addressed the court and apologized for her actions. Sandra gave Lorraine's daughter her sincerest, heartfelt apology. She said she has great sorrow and unceasing anguish in her heart. The judge then sentenced Sandra to 16 to 40 years for the slaying and 2 years for the firearms violation. May Lorraine Maylin Faison continue to rest peacefully. My belated condolences to her family. My well wishes go out to them, and I hope that they are doing as well as they can be. Lorraine was described as a generous person who would rather give than receive. Lorraine's slaying was absolutely senseless. The issue between her and Sandra could have been resolved in another way that did not involve someone losing their life. I mean, these are two women who were almost 50 years old. Working with others can be difficult, and you're not going to always like your coworkers, but there is no need to take it to this level. This is what happens when you go unconscious and live in the imagination of your emotions and anger. You make choices you wouldn't have rather made if you became more aware of your emotions and anger. It's easier to keep them in check when you're aware versus allowing them to take over you and lead you to commit evil acts. There are a lot of things both women could have done better, in my opinion, but Lorraine should still be here to live her life with her family. Disagreements at work to me are never that serious. I had some coworkers I could not stand, but never enough to throw my life away. I know for some people, quitting is not an option, but for me, I would quit real quick if it meant protecting my peace, sanity, and freedom. Fam, tell me your thoughts on this story. Do you think Sandra's actions were premeditated, or do you think it was a heat of the moment situation that just ended badly? What would you have done if you were in this situation? We can all learn from each other's mistakes and choose to do better. Please be respectful and share your thoughts in the comments below. All right, fam, that's it for this episode of Hood Tales. Thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 times. Until next time.